Just going about a minute, see if everybody else trickles in. Actually, if I knew it was going to be a smaller crowd like this, I'd have preferred to just sit down there with you guys and have a conversation. But my name is Jason Fults. I'm the manager of the Teamcenter Foundation Product Management team. For those of you who know me, I've been working in the active workspace client framework for the last 6 years or so. Prior to that, I was in services, working consulting, traveling, working with a lot of automotive and consumer goods companies. Today, I want to provide really just awareness of some of the things that we're doing to lower cost of ownership, deliver new capabilities around deployment, around security. Deployment Center is certainly a big topic. If you have questions, Bob Donovan and Mukunda Rajagopal gave great presentations yesterday, and you can ask them questions after this. Any other topics? We have some people here around cloud infrastructure, and we have some folks here around security. But anything else you want to know about, come to me, and I'll get you plugged in with the right people. I'm still the active workspace client framework product manager, but now I'm also working. You know, the way we kind of slice things is all the building blocks go together under the foundation team, whether it's client, whether it's integration, whether it's core services, security, and things like that. So that's all kind of lumped together. And you can sort of see the foundations where you might expect it to be in this little triangle. You know, we're on the bottom. Everybody else builds their apps and capabilities on top of us. For this situation, we're not going to talk much about usability. That really is more in the active workspace or rich client domain. But we're going to talk about deployability, extensibility, and connectivity. This is sort of the process view for the deployment excellence track here. You know, you got to basically deploy the software, install, patch, update. We have to worry about extensibility, integration, system administration, security, both from a authorization and an authentication perspective, migration of data, not all the time, but depending on what you're doing, that can be an issue. And performance, performance, performance. It's like the 3 rules of, you know, real estate: location, location, location. And we are definitely paying attention to performance, and you'll see some good news later in this presentation. I like to bring in this next slide. It kind of shows how things fit together. Still, if you look at the deployment excellence, it's installation, configuration, environment management, securing the environment, upgrading, integrating, right? The same themes you saw on the previous slide. But this now shows how the pieces fit together. You start at your resource tier with your database, your operating system, authentication, and then you go up a level and you have your security for authorization, data model, behavior, and layer up from that, you're looking at FMS and core services, SOA that drives the clients and integrations. On top of that, active workspace, rich client, office client, CAD integrations, and things like that. And then kind of beside this diagram, you can see, I guess I'm looking at the TV down here, I should be pointing up here. You can kind of see all of the integrations, and the integrations happen at different tiers. So you might have the Teamcenter integration framework, which is more of your traditional enterprise application integration model, where there's a standard messaging model and a bunch of connectors that go into different, that kind of do the interpretation for the different client machines that are tied together. So it provides a consistent way to tie data together across a federated domain and make events, trigger things in other systems, and push data around. So that's kind of the purpose of TCIF. It's, you also have the linked data framework, which lets you bring, basically you're building smart links, right? So you bring in an external system, you select something, you say you want to build a link, and then Teamcenter LDF knows how to put that link together so you can get back there. And we'll show a demo on that later. The other thing that's kind of in the middle is the Teamcenter Gateway for SAP. It provides some of that remote UI capability, and it's very tailored for the SAP use cases. And the one that kind of comes from the application, or from the active workspace, is the HTML panel. You know, and you can take custom HTML, it could be your own HTML, it could be coming from an external system, and you can just put it into, I don't know if you're familiar, but an iframe or a div that floats in the active workspace. So a very loose coupling where you're just kind of mashing up data in the UI. So these are some of the different, you know, configuration or different technologies that we use for integration. And I'll go into a couple of these, but not all of these here. If you have questions on any of these, definitely glad to meet with you and follow up. From an agenda perspective, I wanted to pick some of the things that hopefully are interesting to all of you and useful as you're going forward, and I think as you're planning will help you to figure out your own vision for what you want to do at your customer sites. So the first thing we want to go into, and we'll spend a lot of time there, is Deployment Center. As I said, there's other presentations here for Deployment Center and 2 experts sitting right over there. So anybody who's interested, let's have a conversation after this and tie off on that. Rapid Start's been very successful for us. This is taking best practices, standing Teamcenter up very quickly, 30 days, and then it's open, but I'll get into the details in a second. Integration, I'm just going to go into Teamcenter Integration Framework and LDF in this case because those are really your more traditional deployments where some of the others, first of all, TSYS has their own session here, or not TSYS, but the Gateway team has their own session here, and the HTML panel was covered in the Active Workspace session, so it's not really, I don't want to redundantly cover that here. Multi-site, most of the story for multi-site right now is around performance. There's some really exciting stuff going on with TCXML and then with parallelization. And finally, security. Operation access rules are the next generation of our security model. So we'll start with Deployment Center. And these are the challenges that a lot of us face with Deployment Center. I've got dev environments, test environments, training environments, production environments, production-like environments. I might be then having to run a patch through all of that, coming at me sideways because of something I didn't expect. And so you end up with a permutation problem of all these environments and all these versions of software that you have to somehow choreograph and bring together and potentially even merge, right? And so the Deployment Center is taking a shot at centralizing that, and we are starting to harmonize those processes and give a lot of visibility and tools around making that an easier process. As I said, software updates coming from us, coming from partners, those will drive those type of changes. Your own custom solutions, right? We actually want to, with this work in Deployment Center, with the work in Active Workspace, we're becoming more and more agile. We're doing that so we can respond to all of you more quickly. So you don't wait for 3 years to get an enhancement or get something fixed, right? So we can get things out to you fast. And we're hoping to make you guys more agile as well. Downtime. Block points are a huge problem. If you can't get done in a weekend, what are you doing? You're rolling back, right? So we want to continually work against that time and compress it. Resources, and I look at resources a couple ways. Resources could be, hey, I want to go to the cloud, and I want to use elasticity, on-demand resources, or my resources could actually be human resources. And why do I have to train all my people so deep just to do simple things, right? So we're targeting resources, we're targeting server resources, we're targeting the burden on people and trying to drive that down. And I think the market demand, what do you always get? Do more with less, right? Higher quality, higher speed, better results, less cost, right? And so we're building the tools that we think will help you guys achieve that in the field. Deployment Center, there's really 4 pillars of how this is kind of how we look at Deployment Center. Making things easier, being flexible, being fast, and then the idea of continuous integration and continuous deployment, right? For easy, how are we doing that? We're taking out redundant steps. We're sort of doing a lean analysis on what it took to use TEM, and we're peeling that stuff away, and you'll see some great KPIs on that later. Flexibility. People are going to the cloud. People are behind firewalls. People are air-gapped. People are on-prem. People are hybrid, right? So the model of what people want to do with Teamcenter is becoming more and more highly personal to the customer. And we need the flexibility to support all of those cases. Fast. As we look at the whole process and we start doing the lean analysis on the input, we also can look at scripting to power, getting things deployed in parallel. Instead of stepping through doing manual processes, we can now deploy scripts and go much faster by doing it in parallel. And then continuous, there's a slide on this that kind of talks about where we want to get to. But really the goal here for continuous is we want upgrades and deployment to stop being scary, right? We want them to be low risk. We want to be something that you can do more easily, less effort, less downtime. Because the closer you are to us, the more when you ask for a fix, we can get it right in. We're on a 6-month cadence, right? So if we do a turnaround in 6 months, but you're 3 years behind us, then that's a huge problem for both of us, right? So the more we can give you the tools to help you do continuous integration and continuous deployment, the more it helps both of us, right? We don't have to go and do a patch against software that is kind of, out of step now, and you don't have to be on old software. You can be on the current stuff, and we can all be talking the same language, right? The same solution. Going forward and looking at easy, lowering cost. You'll see it in a second, but the Deployment Center is a web-based front end that goes across all of those environments, all of those sort of variegated test, production, different releases of software environments, and gives you visibility to all of them at once. And you can download patches and apply them as you want to. You don't have to say, hey, I'm going to patch all my environments. You select the environment and you patch them one at a time. It is a consistent process of 5 steps, and there's some intelligence built in. For example, if I don't have anything to change, the deployment tab doesn't show up. Makes sense, right? Why show me something that I don't need to do? So we're trying to add that kind of user experience into the Deployment Center to make it more discoverable, more obvious for you guys to use. The next thing is automation. As I mentioned, scripting, so you don't have to go through and do as many manual steps. Get the scripts built, deploy the scripts to the servers they need to go on, and run them. And the next step for that is to automate that piece so that there's an agent listening on the server, and it says, oh, I got a new script, I got to run it. Already Deployment Center listens, and it can tell you, hey, this script is in process, or this thing hasn't been deployed yet, and it gives you an indication in the UI that says it's not done. But when it's done, you see a flag, right? And so you know it's been deployed. Analysis tools. Admin data has been out there for a long time, but if you do a patch, you can run the admin data analysis tools. There's multiple sessions on that this week. Bob's doing one, and I don't know who, the presenter wasn't in the software to show who was doing the other ones, but there's many things going on where people are using the admin data tools to do some powerful stuff. So if you roll a patch out and you're kind of like, well, what was the impact? You can actually diff your environments using those admin data tools. And the other thing that's coming into the build is TC Doctor, which is a tool that came sort of out of our manufacturing group that will go and interrogate an environment and help you troubleshoot by breaking things down. It's something you don't want to run all the time because it's expensive, right? You start turning on logging and turning all this other tracking, and it gets to be expensive. But if you're troubleshooting a project, you fire this thing up, and it will help you get more data about what's going wrong with your system. The next piece here, this is really talking about all those environments. You can kind of see, hopefully you can see here, dev, test 1, test 2, training. This is real world. It's what we've, lived with for a long time. People talk about doing hot deployments, and people talk about doing hot fixes, and there may be people out there doing that, but most customers, this is what they do. They're testing, they're making sure that their end users don't get a low quality system, right? And so they roll these things from build to build. And you'll see as I go into the demo that we can provide the data about each and every one of these, and you can interrogate and find out what's going on. The next step here is just kind of showing dev, tested, and production. Hopefully you can read that. Dev 11.2.3.3.2, so it's ahead. Test 11.2.1.3.1, lagging a bit, and then production is behind on the Teamcenter release, and it actually matches the active workspace release, and that's intentional. The active workspace has been decoupled, sort of like NX is decoupled. So I can actually upgrade the active workspace without upgrading the server. I can upgrade the NX without upgrading the server as well. So that gives you the ability to make things more bite-sized and lower risk. And again, it's all part of that, helping you guys to move faster and helping us to move faster as well. The next build here, these are the steps. You can see the tabs across the top. In this case, they're all lighted up, but when you see the actual movie, you'll see deployments off at the beginning. So you select your software, select your options, select your applications, components, and deploy. And even if you're just doing a patch, you could actually add an application. You don't have to do the patch and then do an application separately. You can put those together, the scripts get generated, and then you can go run those scripts. This is just talking about what I mentioned earlier. We're seeing more customers going to the cloud or using a hybrid cloud environment, and we're seeing a lot of other people that are saying, you know what, I've got the hardware, I've got the systems here, and I'm just going to continue using what I have. And there's other people that are air-gapped, and they're saying, my customer's never going to let me put this on the cloud. That's fine, right? Our goal is to suit all of those needs and to use the same tool for it. The next piece here, and this is where I want to show the demo, you can kind of see marching through TEM. You know, I've got a patch foundation, patch TEM, patch active workspace, update custom software, add new apps, and there are manual steps every piece. So not only is it taking 4.5 hours to run in this benchmark, but I got to touch it the whole time, right? On the right, fastest option, 90 minutes to get through it. And granted, this is a lab environment. We understand that your environments are different. This is just for a reference point, right? But build the scripts, and you'll see how they get built in a second. Run the scripts, and everything goes in parallel on all these different machines. And while that's happening, we're actually phoning back to Deployment Center and saying, hey, Deployment Center, I just changed this. You know, this one's done. Change that little stopwatch to a flag, right? And so you can go from environment to environment and see exactly what's going on. So this is the demo. Hopefully this will work okay on this format. Do I have to click out there? Sorry, a little tough to drive out there. So what we're doing here is, in the left, you can see the software repository. The environments are next. So if I'm going to download a patch, I have to actually still go out and get the patch for now. And I've got to pull it down. So here, we're going to go out and download the latest version, just going on Windows Explorer. I'm going to copy it over to my staging area. And once it's there, Deployment Center is going to pick it up. So that's going to take a second here. But you can see it's been downloaded here in this window. I just drag it over to my staging area. Once that's done, I can go back to Deployment Center. And just refresh, and the new patches will show up, right? Now, they're not installed. I haven't done anything with them, but they're just staged for me to use, right? So now I need to go back to my environments. I haven't put this anywhere yet, right? I'm just staging this to be used. But if I go back to the environments now, in this case, you can see production in a dev environment. And if I go to, say, select software, right, hit the plus to add new software, I can see the options that I just drug over, right? If I select those and say update, those will show up on the left. And you'll see all of the status flags for the things that are installed and the little stopwatches for things that aren't, right? So until you say go, those aren't done. So at this point, you could go and deploy. You could go straight to deploy, generate the scripts, copy the scripts to the various servers and run them. But you can also do other things. You know, this is the whole point, is you can do multiple things at once and send them in one go. So what if I want to go and add a new application, right? So I can hit add again. I can see what's available. In this case, I think we're going to select active content, do an update. So it shows up in my list now. Deploy showed up as soon as I made some changes, and I can generate the install scripts, right? Now at this point, this is going to go run and generate these scripts. It's not going to go, we don't have the agents running on all the servers yet to sort of automate that piece of it. That's part of the vision, but it's not there yet. So, but still, this is the instructions. I don't have to go hunt the documentation. It knows what changed. It knows what has to be done to install these. And so I can just literally go down this like a checklist. There are the files. There's the target machines. When I run all those scripts, I'm done. But Deployment Center also knows I'm done, because those scripts phone home and tell Deployment Center when they're done. So as far as tracking all these different environments and getting this done, there's a lot there to help you go through the steps. And it's a lot less sort of, should I press this button? I'm nervous, right? It's a lot more, okay, Deployment Center is telling me this is how I should do it, and I can follow this without as much anxiety and without having to go to the documentation maybe and get through it quicker. The next piece here, what's this saying? Unfortunately, I'm getting a message here that says, unfortunately, one-way controller IR blaster has stopped. Do you know what that is? Okay, I can't dismiss it, I don't think. So it's an error message from the error machine, I guess. So anyway, the performance here, we did some KPIs to see, what was the difference? Do a benchmark, go through TEM, what's the process take? And we saw a 96% reduction in the effort to install, patch, and upgrade. 89% fewer screens. 79% less fields asking me for input. Part of this is just because the team went through and said, why are we asking for the same thing 3 times? That's crazy, right? Why aren't we assuming this? If we know X and Y, we can make this conclusion for Z. And so they did sort of a lean analysis to pare this stuff out of there if it wasn't needed, or make assumptions that were logical 99% of the time. You can still get to the changes if you need to, but that's the exception, not the rule, so why ask you every time, right? 80% reduction in skill level. There were a lot of pages of user documentation that are no longer needed, and also because it's walking you through the wizard, there's less uncertainty and less reading that's needed. And then, as you saw earlier in our benchmark, it was way beyond a 30% faster install, right? But that is not real world. We understand your environments are more complex, you're pushing more data, right? But 30%, we're getting feedback now, and we definitely, if you guys use this tool, we need feedback. This is the moment when we can really make a difference. So please give us feedback, reach out to Bob, reach out to myself, and we'll bake your feedback back into this tool. It's the time when the iron's hot and we can make some good changes. So the next piece here, this is sort of the vision. Agile ready. We want you guys to be more agile. We want you guys to be able to move quicker. We want you to be able to take up the things that we're doing more quickly. We want to be, closer, not, hey, we haven't updated Teamcenter in 5 years. We really want to be able to partner with you to troubleshoot your business problems, right? And so to do that, being able to iterate faster. I don't know if you've read things like the Lean Startup or you listen to the fail fast type stuff, but the idea is the faster I can iterate, do some good things, maybe make a few mistakes, but fix those mistakes. I could iterate 2, 3 times, make some mistakes and fix them, and be way further ahead than if I'm still in my first iteration, right? So it's an idea of organizational learning, and the faster you can move, the faster we can move, and the faster we can attack your business problems together. As far as downtime, this is going to be a constant for us to push on. We really need to get, especially if you go to these web clients, they really aren't accepting downtime at all. So our target's going to be to mercilessly go after downtime, and hopefully that helps all of you as well. Path to production, this is the backbone for continuous integration, continuous deployment. This is how we want to help you manage all the complexity of those different environments and rolling software forward. And the next step really here for automation is command line support, as well as being able to schedule pushing software automatically so you don't have to copy it all around manually. So getting those agents in place that'll pull those out to the servers. Okay, so the next thing to talk about is rapid start. And this is another strategy for sort of dealing with performance, or for dealing with deployment, right? And what it is to use best practices we've gotten from a lot of small, mid-sized business customers. And we've done a lot of these at this point, and we're baking those into a solution. And then we've got the implementation. As long as you're willing to do sort of PDM and follow the pattern, we can get you in production in 30 days. And then the nice thing about this is, unlike some other offerings we've had in the past, it's open. If you want to go from there and do Schedule Manager or SDPD or whatever your vision is, you go. We're not going to stand in your way, right? That's part of the idea, is this is a quick start. And the other thing to share is this can be a nice way to get started. We also offer a SaaS offering. I'll talk to it in a second. So you can actually limit if you think about yourself as an entrepreneur, what do? You limit capital expense. Maybe I don't want to train all my IT on something new. I could go SaaS, get something stood up, get user feedback. I could cancel if I want to. Or I can go and say, yeah, this is where I want to go. Let's go get training and let's take off with this thing, right? So it's a nice way to get your toe in the pool. This is up here. I know it's a little low level, but I think a lot of people aren't really sure what's pre-configured. So multi-CAD is supported, document management, simple change, workflow, indexing, translation, the ability to take CAD files and convert them to JT, visualization. So all of these pieces, it's actually a heck of a lot for a rapid start. If you took a project on yourself, most customers wouldn't be able to get this far, but we get this far because we're using the best practices and lessons learned from previous work with other customers, right? Active Workspace, also important to note. So this is a slide that's just sort of, what does it look like if I go SaaS, right? So if I go SaaS, you're on AWS, you have Teamcenter author licenses, 250 megabytes of storage space for the system, and then 30 gigabytes of file storage space per user, right? This is what you start off with. And you can scale from there, whatever. Backups every 24 hours with a rolling rotation of 35 days. And then the initial server implementation and all of that is included. And that's, of course, you know, your IT doesn't have to be doing that if this is SaaS, right? It's a subscription. We take care of it for you. If you go with NX, we do the client configuration. If you go with Solid Edge, a partner does the client configuration. So, and the other thing here is cloud means a lot of things. The SaaS solutions, what I just had up there, that is pretty much a subscription. You subscribe, it gets turned on, you get a URL, you get some online training, and you can go use it. Infrastructure as a service, that's really close to what you're already doing. You're just using cloud infrastructure. Maybe you want to use elasticity. Maybe you don't want to buy hardware to get something started or do a pilot or something, right? So we're really open and flexible to whatever you guys want to do in this area. Next thing here, this is just going through, you know, what's sort of the process if you want to do cloud SaaS. So subscribe, send in, you know, fill out a form for your configuration needs. You get a URL, you receive online training, and you can go off and use the software. So I think the only thing I really had here that's different than what I've already said, I was just making the point that it's very quick. You're starting to get ROI out of your investment very quickly. It's an entrepreneurial model. It's up and going without a lot of sort of overhead expenses to get live. You don't have to invest in your IT expertise. You could actually stand it up while you were training your people, right? So it opens some new doors, some new ways to get started with Teamcenter. The next thing I want to talk about is integration. And there's a couple flavors of integration I want to get into. Teamcenter Integration Framework and Linked Data Framework. And I think I've got about 18 minutes left, so I should be good. So the first thing is, a lot of us, your business processes go across a federated system of, well, a federated system of systems, really, right? So your data is not staying in Teamcenter or ERP or CRM or whatever, or not CRM, but SRM. Your data is moving across these systems. So whether you use Teamcenter Integration Framework to sort of push the data around, or whether you use client-side configuration like LDF to build smart links, really depends on what you're trying to accomplish, and I'll lay some of that out here in a second. So this is the Teamcenter Integration Framework. It is very similar to if you ever did enterprise application integration. You have sort of a central framework, and you have connectors to the different systems that translate to those systems. The messaging that goes back and forth is consistent. The connectors know how to speak the local language of SAP or Teamcenter or whatever you're talking to. The administration is consistent. The framework is consistent. In this case, you do not need a web app server. It's like FMS. It has its own install. And the deployment's been simplified from some of the EAP or EAI, systems that are out there, so that it's easier to administer. This is used again to push around data. So an event happens over here, maybe a workflow event, and I'm going to suck data into another system because that's what the next step is, or vice versa. So it's sort of message based. It's got connectors to a number of systems. There's out of the box Jdbc connectors to Teamcenter, to connectors. Well, you'll see. I'm not aware of another site, so I've got some details for the roadmap here as well. This is a way that a lot of people use to tie together legacy systems without replacing them, right? So I've got an older system, it's in place, it gets a job done, but I want to pull that data forward into Teamcenter and now make it a part of my overall data flow and business process. So I can leave that data there and I can pull it in as I need it. Maybe I'm even pulling it in and revising it in Teamcenter or whatever. So this is a way that a lot of people will integrate sort of legacy applications and pull that data into Teamcenter automatically. This next, so the advancements we've had Queue management for asynchronous processing, running multiple queues in parallel, again, for performance. The ability to back up and recover. So if something goes wrong, like I'm trying to push something to another system and it's offline, then we can go and back up and restart that push, right? So it's not like you fired it and forgot. It's like, oh, this didn't work out. Let's go rerun that when it's back online, and we can pick up where we left off. And then the Jdbc data sources, you can create data sources, you can test those data sources and write test harnesses around those, which are handy because you know, if something changes or whatever, you can catch it that way, right? And then it supports Oracle, Microsoft SQL Server, H2, Teamcenter, obviously. And then I think that's it for this, really. The one I've got a demo on that's a little bit more interesting is Linked Data Framework. So Linked Data Framework is what we're using internally to integrate PLM and ALM. So we have integrated, you'll see in a second, we start at ECR in Teamcenter. We hook that to requirements in Polarian. And then we also hook it to a software change in Bugzilla, right? So the idea is you're not pushing data around here. You're not waiting for data to go from system A to system B. You're building a smart link. So it's really loose but smart. And so I can go into Polarian, I can search for something, I can select it, bring it back in as a reference into Teamcenter, and that reference knows where to get the data in Polarian. And you'll even see in this example, we can go and use that reference to expand structure that's in Polarian and show it in the relation browser of Teamcenter. It's an open standard. It's OSLC. It's used by a lot of IBM tools. It's a sort of a market standard that a lot of others already tie into if you want to use them. It is extensible, and it is you know, relatively lightweight and easy to deploy. So this is a bit technical. Just wanted to say that it's the linked data architecture can use the delegated user interface. I'll show it live in a second here, and it'll be much easier to understand. And then the URIs persist and can get you back to that data. Again, OSLC is a standard that a lot of other systems honor. And this integrates directly into the active workspace. So these windows for the other system show up directly in active workspace and you can interact with them. I think the movie really is going to clear a lot of this up. So in this use case, just to do a little setup, we're doing a Teamcenter ECR, right? And the ECR, to build this up, we're going to go to an object set and say, hey, I need to bring in requirements from Polarian, and I need to bring in a change coming from Bugzilla based upon a defect, right? So, and then those, that external data is live, so it's not coming over as a snapshot in time, it's not cached, right? If I follow those links back, the data is live, so I can count on it being current. Oops, sorry, I need to start the movie. All right, so here you can see the ECR that's in Teamcenter. I said add. I'm going to say drive pilot. It's going into Polarian, changing the type we're looking for in Polarian. You can see the list refresh. Now I select the requirement out of Polarian, and I define the relationship type. So instead of effects, it implements the requirement. Once I hit add, it shows up in the object set. And that smart link knows how to get back to itself, knows how to get back to the root data. Now the next thing I want to do is go into Bugzilla, and here it comes up. I've got to sign in this case. Polarian, we didn't have to. And then I want to select a software change request. I hit OK, and it comes into the object set too. So great, I've got links. That's exciting, but maybe not what we're looking for. So now let's look at how this ties together. So we go to the relationship browser, and I can interrogate. So I can see the software change request on the left, and I can see the Polarian requirements below, and I've expanded. Okay, that's the one I linked, the ABS interface sensor. It goes to sensors. Let's see what else is down there. So I'm going to recursively expand, getting data live out of Polarian using this link. And you'll see that come in now as we sort of get it to zoom out. There you can see the remaining Polarian data, and it's all live. It wasn't a copy, it's not a reference. It's data that I just got out of Polarian using the reference to get me back there. So this can be really powerful. It's a technology, right? It's not an end user use case. but it can be very powerful for helping you guys realize the needs if you're going across different systems. And again, it's more of a UI configuration and a smart URL, so it's pretty lightweight to get this set up and going. Okay, multi-site, this is all about performance. And you saw, if you guys saw Joe's presentation, he already showed the 10x slide. There's two things going on here, and the 10x slide is just the first. So the first thing going on is we're doing batch processing to get data out of Teamcenter and push it to another site, right? And that is keeping us from having to do a lot of node-to-node traversals to build that data up. So we build the XML up, and then we use it to sync the data to another site, and we can do it in a batch, right? And we can do it very efficiently. The TCXML is the payload. The rest of the infrastructure is pretty much the same, but the big thing that, that is on top of that, if I can get it up here, is the scalable part. I can't find my mouse up there. Anyway, the idea that I can do parallelization. So it's kind of like if I have a processor that has, 8 cores. If I'm just doing one, I'm not going to see the benefit of parallelization. But if I'm doing a bunch of synchronization, you're not queuing up now, right? You can go in parallel. They can all go at once, so you get that 10x performance, and you're also doing it all at the same time. You're not queuing up. You're not waiting. So this actually has, oops. Yeah, sorry, I hit the F button accidentally. This actually has the ability to do a lot better than that. You can see on this page, I think the things to call out is, this was sort of something we went after for 4G data. As you can imagine, cruise ship or a battleship or whatever, there's a lot of data there, right? So we needed something that was set-based, that was pulling a lot of data across very quickly, and that's where this idea came from. And then, we had already done research around export for solar and things like that. So we've done a lot of work in this area to get data out very quickly. And then by doing the set-based work and the traversal work, we get the advertised 10x faster performance on multi-site. And I hope this is a big help for people who are dealing with multi-site right now. The idea is, UC updates faster, reduces accidents and errors and things like that. The next piece of this is the parallelization piece I mentioned, right? So if I'm kicking off a bunch of these at once, I can use the resources that are available to do that. And this is what we've seen from that. So if you look at today, you got 25K per hour, right? And this is a lab environment, so granted, it's not your data, right? TCXML, 300K per hour. By going to parallelization, and then it is lab environment, 2 million per hour, okay? So just by getting to 300K per hour, we get the 10x that we're claiming. But there's a possibility to go far beyond that. Now, if you're doing onesie, twosie synchronizations, you're not doing a lot of synchronizations, 10x is something to plan around. But if you're doing massive synchronization, the parallelization could really help you get a lot more data across the wire a lot more quickly. So I'm down to 5 minutes, unfortunately. I want to talk very quickly about the next generation of security. And this is security in the sense of not authentication, but authorization. What can I do with the data? So the rule tree today, although I kind of like it, it's kind of like a Plinko game. You kind of, object goes in the top and it bounces around. I was a big fan of Price is Right, but it's not that great to troubleshoot it. And it's not that great to design it, right? So what we're trying to do is sort of flatten things. So what we need is more granular control. We need more flexibility. We need to be able to put in our own messages operations, that we want to test against. And we need to be able to slice and dice this stuff very quickly to troubleshoot and tweak it and turn things off and on. So what we come up with is OAR. And kind of going from the, 9 o'clock around the clock, granular access, like I said, operation-based access on objects. Can I do this operation? And the idea is, until you get a rule that says you can, you can't, right? Once you get a rule that says you can, nobody can take it away. That keeps it pretty simple. It keeps us from having a lot of nesting and what-ifs and corner cases, right? So, and this is actually a model for anybody that's coming from Teamcenter Enterprise. This should be very friendly for migrating message access rules. Think about message, operation, they're really very similar. And so this is a proven technology from enterprise as well, and something that will help people migrate over if there are still people that haven't migrated. The flexibility to write conditions. Now, conditions can get pretty complicated. You can do a lot when you're writing a condition, but you can also reuse them. So if I write a condition that sort of does some hairy logic, then I can reuse it over and over again. And when you'll see the UI here, you'll see exactly how you can see the condition right away in the user interface. Simplified administration, we're talking flat lists, we're talking filtering. I might have hundreds of rules and I say, hey, give me all the rules for parts. Now I'm dealing with something reasonable. Give me all the real rules for parts that are read access. Now I'm really dealing with something reasonable, right? So you pare down very quickly to what's relevant, and then you troubleshoot those things, and you say, hey, somebody's getting read access that shouldn't get it. You know, okay, here's the 5 rules that exist. Let me turn this one off. Hey, it's gone. Great, that was the culprit, right? So the idea of getting to the rule that's impacting you very quickly, doing the analysis very quickly is one of the big drivers for this. The reduced cost of defining this, shorter learning cycle, flat lists are just simpler. A lot of people were nervous about using the AM rule tree, and when they troubleshoot, they'd get to the wrong leaf node and be like, well, I can't understand why this isn't working the way I expect it to. And it's because they had evaluated something up the tree incorrectly, right? They evaluated condition incorrectly, just missed it, and they were getting the wrong thing, and it was throwing them off. So it's just all flat. Faster analysis, like I said, you're slicing and dicing using the power of the sort of like the active workspace search. You can search on things, find me all the rules, filter by my type, filter by my action, and you can see them in one view. I'll show it and it just does a better job. But the guiding principles for this were deny, so negative bias, right? You don't have access till I give it to you. Operation-based control, so it's granular. Flat list of rules that grant and nothing can take away, so once you have it, you have it. And then no precedence or order. So if I'm going through and I do have 3 or 4 rules that all give me access, as soon as I get to one, I'm done. I don't need to keep processing. So as far as performance goes, that's pretty quick. I don't have to process everything. I don't have to process the whole rule set. As soon as I get access, it's over. Flexibility to define conditions, I talked about a little bit, and then the analysis is easy. There's one other thing I was going to mention that wasn't on here. Oh, the ability, and you'll see it in a second, the ability to define your own operations. So if I have an operation that's sort of a proxy operation, not one of the out-of-box ones, I can define my own operation and I can say, hey, put this into OAR and drive rules around it. Okay, so down to 2 minutes. Let me hustle up. So this is defining your own operation. The flag that's outlined is telling me to make it available to access control. This is really important. Okay, so we are now doing something we call test-driven design, test-driven development, right? And so the idea is we start with what are my requirements, and we design the test first. And then when the software we develop meets the test, we know it works, right? Not only that, when a patch comes and breaks that test, we know it's broken, right? So there's a test tool that comes with this, and this is the recommendation. Define your security policy, derive your test cases first, meet those test cases with your configuration, then if any patch breaks it, you can catch it, right? So that's a powerful way to have a different process change help you ensure quality from release to release, patch to patch. People are customizing whatever's going on in your environment. Testing, automated testing can be a lifesaver. And so it's something we believe in strongly and something we've built into this model as well. The next slide is just showing how to run the test. There's a command line utility. I'm not going to go into it, but you can see OAR rule test harness. You configure it in XML. This is the user information. This is the criteria. These are the operations to be tested. And it reports out admin data. The next thing is showing sort of the Plinko on the left of rule tree and the flat list on the right. And you can see that you have to really dig into the tree where this is right in front of you. But until I run the movie, I don't think you'll really get it. So if I can get my mouse down there. It's kind of jumping around. There we go. OK. So here we have, what, 512 rules. That's pretty daunting, right? Well, how many are related to parts? Let's find that out. So I type in part in my filter, just like I'm searching an active workspace. Oh, I've got 9. I can deal with that. And look, there's all the conditions, and there's what they can do for an operation, and this is user-based and group-based, and okay, I get it. Now who has read access? Six rules for read access. Who has write access? Just engineering, right? Who can delete? Just engineering. And it's a group assignment, right? So that's what we mean by quicker analysis. That's what we mean by not having to wade through the rule tree and just go straight to the results. And this is something we really haven't had before. So if you look at, I'm sorry that I'm a minute over, I'll try to be as quick as I can. Here's the metrics we have for this. 98% or 95% less time to understand the rule model, 96% faster evaluation, 90% more granular and extensible access control. And these are evaluations we're doing sort of in a lab, so it may not be exactly what you get, but hopefully you get the idea. Bob will be doing a presentation on object access rules. If you want to get deeper into it, please go to his presentation. Again, lower cost of ownership, more granular control, improved user experience for the administrator, and faster analysis. I mean, that's the benefits for this thing. And the last thing I have here are related sessions. Unfortunately, for some reason, a lot of the deployment centers got scheduled yesterday. So, but the materials are out there, and Bob and Mukunda are available if you want to dig deeper with them. Other things that are out there, Guy Brissell talking about AWS and talking about Azure today. And it's coming up, I believe, pretty soon this afternoon. And then Teamcenter Security, Bob Donovan's going to get into OAR and possibly some other things. To cloud or not cloud, I thought that just looked interesting from Rick Courtwright, making the decision of whether the cloud's useful to you or not. And then finally, Rohit Tangri talking about the Teamcenter cloud strategy. The final thing I wanted to say is, I'm sorry I had to go quick. There was a lot more I could have brought in. I didn't talk about things like nearline archive or the admin data. Please reach out, right? We would love to help you guys go live, make your lives simpler. I mean, that's what we're here for, right? So there's my email, jason.foltz@siemens.com. Please feel free to reach out. I will either help answer your questions or get you the right person. And I want to say also, I kind of skipped ahead of this. Thank you very much for attending. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about this, and I hope you have a great conference.